look at axle to axle, say on this bow, again, we're actually kind of in the middle, where maybe it's around 32 inches, okay? And so, again, if I'm a real tall guy, I gotta draw that bow back farther. So when I draw that bow back farther, that string angle comes back and it comes more abrupt, okay? Now, here's why I look at that, is if I draw this bow back, my goal is to get this back and everything's right there. We want it to be automatic, especially in a hunting situation. I have the tip of my nose of the string, I'm back here in my anchor point, and everything's right there. Now, I'm a 27-inch draw. You have somebody that's maybe a 30, 31, maybe even out to 32-inch draw. The farther I draw that bow back, the more abrupt that string angle gets.
Sure.
Okay? So since that, and here's where that makes a difference is, if I draw that back and the string angle comes down here, okay, I'm having to go like this, tip my head, that's putting pressure back here on my neck, okay? So we want to watch that as well. So somebody that's a little bit taller, back to axle, I don't want to get you guys confused, but back to axle, here's a bow that's a little bit longer, and so since that's longer here, I don't have quite that abrupt string angle. So let's look at comfort when you're looking at these bows as well. And that's what I really want to stress is, go into your pro shop and try them all. You might grab these bows. I know myself, I like some grips better than other grips. So that's one of the things we want to look at as well. I've grabbed bows before and I go, oh, I don't like that grip at all. And that does that. So again, that's where we're at with our axle to axle, and that's why I like that. So again, we have two things. We have how easy does this move? That makes it a little bit more forgiving. A lot of our target guys might have them longer axle bows. Okay, but also if we're sitting in a ground blind or sitting in real tight quarters, we might want to look at that shorter axle to axle. But so them are just a couple things to consider.
So to sum it up, kind of the axle to axle, the taller you are, the longer axle to axle you want, correct?
It's not necessarily, it's just what fits you comfortably. Just remember, we don't want to put extra pressure on any muscles. We want everything to be relaxed. And so that just helps us with accuracy. So we don't want to confuse anything here. Well, I want to go back again to go and shoot them and feel them all. And then your pro shop will also help you get back into that correct point. Okay. So on that note, let's talk a little bit here before I set this down. Let's talk a little bit about brace height. So now our brace height is from here to here. Now here's where that comes into play. Years ago, before we had parallel limb bows, them bows weren't very forgiving. We would have a small, short little riser. That riser is this part right here. Okay, we'd have a small little riser, and when you went with a short axle bow, they were really hard to shoot. Now that we have parallel limb bows, we end up, they just make them much more forgiving. Back to brace height here, if I have a 8-inch brace height versus a 6-inch brace height, what that means is when I shoot that bow, a 6 inches, it's only 6 inches from here, it's going to be faster because that stays on the string longer. Okay? So that stays on the string longer, what happens? We get extra speed. Okay? Now, if we have an 8-inch brace height, that means that arrow got out of our hands sooner, so that's where our forgiveness comes into play, and you end up, again, that gets that arrow out of there, and it ends up with more forgiveness but slower speeds because that arrow ends up getting off of there sooner. So you're losing your power strength. So if that makes sense as well. So you're going to hear axle, you're going to hear brace height, and from there I want to talk a little bit about smoothness of the bow. You won't be able to feel this. You really can't quite tell just by looking at a cam. You'll have to shoot the bow to feel that, but just the way it works in physics is usually the way it goes is the smoother the bow, the slower the bow. So when we see these big high feet per second bows, the fast bows, a lot of times they've come a long ways, but a lot of times they feel a little bit more harsh on the draw. Now your smoother bows, where that cam is coming around smoother, they're usually a little bit slower because they don't quite have the power in there. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yep.
So that's the three things that there as well. Last thing I want to talk about is riser composition. That's this right here. This bow in particular is made out of aluminum. I would say a lot of them are made out of aluminum right now, but there's a few handful out there that are carbon riser bows. Now, if you feel the temperature of this one, and this right here actually is a carbon, okay? Now I'm going to grab an aluminum bow. Now I want you to feel the temperature there. And what are you feeling?
Oh yeah.
You're feeling lighter?
Lighter, yeah.
And this one here, even though the room temperature is warmer,
than the
aluminum.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference when they're sitting there on your lap.
Colder sit.
Yep, exactly. So that can be nice as well. However, you do pay a little bit more for the carbons versus the aluminums. Again, it's going to come back down to feel.